Hey, how you doing? Welcome to
Hey, what's
What's
up?
Your Story?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you for joining.
No problem.
Yeah, so we want to get into more about your story to let people know about your ancestral journey and, what you don't know, what you like to know more about. So I'll start off with my first question, and that is, what do you identify yourself as?
I identify myself as African American, but
Okay.
um, but I am planning to learn a little bit more of my history so I can drill down exactly like where my parents are from, and go all the way back and just try to learn everything I possibly can.
Okay. And have you talked to any of like your family members to see about, your ancestry?
So here's the thing. I've always known there was some Hispanic there, but I
Mhm.
didn't understand the levels of which it could be there, especially when I was younger. It was just like, I just didn't know, but it's not something they talked about. It's not something they talked about in schools. They don't talk about us in schools like that, especially, in school, you either were a slave and then that's it. You know what I mean? So they try to project to you to try to figure out what your name was based on your slave name, but not everybody has that same exact history. So what I do know from my grandfather is that his side of the family is from Aruba. And the most interesting part for me, well, one of the more interesting parts that I've always known is my last name is Paula. But before they came to America, because my grandfather's father came over and a few other of our family members came with them. But before they came over, they decided, hey, let's change our last name. So when we get to America, because during those times, back in the early 1900s, in those times, it wasn't cool to be anything other than white. So they were like, our last name gives us up straight from the gate. So my
Yeah.
last name is Paula. And they said, that's my last name now. But prior to that, our last name was D. Peula. And they were like, we can't do that because that's going to give us away straight out the gate. so
So wait,
um,
you were born Dipeula or Paula?
so when my great grandfather came to America, him and all our family members related to him changed their last name to Paula.
Okay, from Dipeula.
Right, from D. Peula.
But what's the difference? Paula.
So here's the difference. Here's the difference on paper. When you see Paula, you don't know if you're dealing with a black or white person on paper. If you see D Peula, is I guess back then it was kind of sort of obvious this person's probably Hispanic, like a last name with two different parts, like
Yeah, that's
and
true.
and, and then it sounds like that, like they kind of know. So they also did a little bit more planning before they came here. One half of my grandfather's side is white passing, and then the other side is they look black. You
Right.
know, so they changed their last name, and then all the white passing ones went to New York and Chicago to get jobs because they knew it'd be easy to get jobs, and then the other ones stayed in Louisiana.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So so you're not familiar with that side of the family, or are you?
I'm not really that familiar with that side of the family, and the reason why is my grandfather. He only dealt with one cousin from that side of the family who lives in New Orleans, and he would
Okay.
go he would go there to visit him from time to time. But I was just way too young, and then my father kind of feels like he's just a little too aggressive for him. Like he's in New Orleans, so he has all his weapons around and stuff, and it's just like a different environment compared to what our family's used to, because they're a little more stern and a little more they don't really play like that, you know what I mean? So but yeah, my grandfather really didn't deal with a lot of them, and I'm not 100% sure why. I know my grandfather was very strict and very like rule based, and I don't think the rest of the family was like that, so I think that's why he kind of sort of stayed away.
Okay. So let's get more into your life. Who raised you?
My mother and I can't just say my mother alone. My mother, my grandmothers, and my aunts. And I mean, for the most part, my mother and my grandmother. I was always around my grandmothers. So
So, how do you think they came up? Like, was it impoverished? Was it middle class? Were they well off?
so my grandmother on my father's side is probably who I was around the most.
Mm-hmm.
She grew up right around the corner from slave times. You know what I mean? Like you can never complain about having to catch the bus in the snow to her because she had to walk 7 8 miles to go to school. You know what I mean? She had to walk past all types of seeing anything related to slavery or getting called names, like all that. So she had like a hard time. But at the same time, too, she also knew how to do a lot because she was from Mississippi and they didn't have like a full-blown farm, but they grew their own vegetables. You know what I mean? They had their own animals that they would when they got hungry, they did what they had to do. She knew
Right.
how to sew. Like she knew how to do a lot of things compared to where nowadays, like you take electricity away from some of these people, they don't know what in the
Yeah,
world to do.
they do.
But right, like no store, no car, no electricity, it would be a wrap. But no, she lived on land where they lived off the land and did what they had to do. My grandfather as well. Um he was the same exact way. He, as a matter of fact, my grandfather was in Jet magazine for growing one of the largest collard greens in America. But that was what they did. They grew fruits and vegetables, and they
What was
didn't
your
rely on
grandfather's name?
Miguel Paula.
Miguel Paula. So I could look him up.
You can look him up. I don't know where the Jet magazine is, but we have a copy of it as well. He wasn't like on the cover; he was just on like a little insert. But like, yeah,
All good. It's all good.
yeah.
All right. So I got into how your parents were raised. So how were you raised?
um, so well, like I was mentioning, pretty much by my grandmother and by my mom, and they were very strict. They didn't really play around in terms of like letting us hang out late at night and just doing whatever we want. My mom was a little more lenient, even though my mom was still kind of strict. Like
Okay.
but my grandmothers didn't play any games. Like my grandmother on my father's side was a little different. She was a um very very feminine type of like hugging, caress, kissing, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
making sure you feel good. And then my grandfather was, he was very like stern. He didn't play no games. You know what I mean? But
Get with that?
yeah, if you got trouble, he dealt with it. She was always nice to you, and then when you did something wrong, he dealt with you, and then you ain't want to
Okay.
deal with that. You know what I mean? But yeah, my mom, she wasn't really um it's really hard to say. I mean, she worked a whole lot. So like I would say like a lot of direct parenting came from like my grandparents for the most part. But my mother she was kind of lenient. I really didn't. But I mean, in terms of culture, she really wasn't like, hey, you should eat this food because it's from your culture. She really didn't talk much about that. So I mean she
So it
didn't.
was all Americanized in your household.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. That's interesting. So what kind of music do you listen to? Any of Arubian music?
Yeah, I don't even know what they listen to in Aruba, to be honest with you.
Oh
But I
man.
don't really listen to much. I don't listen to much Latin music, to be honest with you. Like, or being a producer, I don't create any Latin music either. I haven't even worked with any Latin artists.
So tell us about that. You're a producer. What kind of music do you get into?
Mostly urban music, so hip hop and R&B. And I've also had like a little stint where I produced like a little bit of EDM, and that did really well. As a matter of fact, like that did extremely well. But yeah, and I was
You're Nicki
interested.
Minaj, right?
Yep, I did Nicki Minaj's first 2.5 mixtapes.
That's dope.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
she shoot you out?
yeah. She put me in the cover of her first album. Gave me some shout outs here and there, a little couple shout outs, nothing
He said
major.
a little bit. Then she ain't do.
A little
She
bit.
ain't.
A little
Okay,
bit.
so have you taken an ancestry test or anybody in your family?
My sister did, and turned out the majority of the percentage is from Nigeria. I plan on taking one also. So I do plan on going on a journey and finally visiting Aruba, finally visiting New Orleans, which is where they first touched down. We actually own land down there. That's a whole other story that I don't really want to get into because I don't want like 1,000 messages, but we own land
Okay.
down there. And I also
He didn't
want
want to fight him in his land.
to yeah, so I want to go there. I want to go to Aruba. Then I also want to look up my grandmother's roots and then my roots on my mother's side also, because I don't really know. So on my mother's side of the family, there's like a lot of people here. But then when you look at here, I mean Delaware. So when you look at my grandmothers and my great grandmother, I know my great grandmother moved from Philly because it was just too crazy up there. She moved down here to get away from the craziness. And I know that on my father's side, my grandmother lived in Mississippi, but then most of her family's from Michigan. So she was in Michigan for a little bit. And my grandfather was down in I don't know how they met. Like I think they met and I don't think it took long for him to decide to marry her. And they was just like, all right, where do we meet in the middle? So people don't have to travel far. And they decided to stay in Delaware. And then also he worked in the car industry. So there was a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he was in New Orleans. She was in Michigan and they decided to meet in the middle.
Okay, so we need the next trip to be a New Orleans trip, right? Is it
Exactly.
New Orleans or New Orleans?
New Orleans.
New Orleans. I'm getting All right. Well, I appreciate you for telling your story. So, what's your story? I'm intrigued to learn more about Arubian culture. So if we can get like some trips going or talk to some more family members and let's discover some more things.
I'm intrigued too. So I guess I'll take this journey with you and whatever I find out, I will share with you and we can put it out there to the world.
Awesome. I appreciate you. How can people get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me through social media for the most part. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on like everything almost, but I would say I'm most active on Twitter and then second Instagram.
So what's your handle?
Traknologist.
Traknologist. Can you
Yep.
spell that for us?
Yeah, we are live, so let me spell that. TRAKNOLOGIST.
Awesome. Adios. Arrivederci. Ciao. Thank you again.
All right, thanks for having me.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.